In a world where hustle culture collides with wellness warnings and workplace demands keep evolving, how do we stay sharp without burning out? How do we navigate the endless stream of wellness trends while actually getting results? This is the Work and Wellness Podcast, and I'm your host, Ange Davis. Drawing from my own journey of wins, stumbles, and honest revelations, I'll be bringing you raw, unfiltered conversations with experts and inspiring guests who've been there, lived it, and found a better way. Together, we'll cut through the noise and workshop what it really means to be well in today's workplace. No more choosing between success and sanity. No more sacrificing health for achievement. Whether you're struggling with burnout, searching for purpose, or simply ready to work smarter, not harder, you're in the right place. This is real talk about real solutions for real people. Let's get into it. Hello, friends. Welcome to the show. I am thrilled to be welcoming today's guest on the podcast because he is the founder of an app that I talk about incessantly and share all the time. Kenneth Schlenker spent years at Google working on Maps, YouTube, and AdWords. He understood exactly how big tech captures attention, but then walked away to build the opposite. Today, he's the founder of Opal app and the CEO. And it's a screen time app that has helped over 1 million people reclaim 300 million hours from their screens. And it's an app I use every day and has been super helpful for my focus. Silicon Valley taught him how to hijack your focus. And now Kenneth is handing it back. Welcome to the show, Kenneth.
Thanks so much, Angela. So excited to be here.
I'm super excited to chat to you. I think serendipitous that your team reached out because I absolutely love Opal app and I think it's fantastic. But I'm also really excited to get under the hood of big tech and better understand the tools that they use to get us addicted to tech and how we can undo those and the impact on well-being. So when you were inside big tech, building the systems that are designed to capture our attention, what did you see that really made you want to walk away from that and start Opal?
Yeah, so I did start my career in big tech and I saw very smart people working to exploit psychological vulnerabilities. That's really the core of the business model. And this is how we build and design these products that are that feel addictive and that you can't put down. And so, when I saw this, I definitely wanted to turn the tables and say, okay, how can we actually use all this wonderful knowledge and science around behavior and put it in the hands of people so people can actually take charge of their attention and decide how to use these wonderful products. So this is the journey. And I think that there's just so much to do to be able to build the right tools and build the right education for people to be able to take control of these wonderful machines we have all in our pockets every single day.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think they're a huge enabler, but also the opposite of that as well, right? They distract us. They can influence our thinking. This is so funny. I don't have TikTok anymore, but I had it. And all of a sudden, I thought I needed a Birkin bag, Kenneth. And I don't even know why. I live in a regional town in Australia. You know what I mean? And so it influences our thinking, which is so wild. What's your relationship with your phone?
Yeah, they're powerful tools. And my personal experience is I have ADHD. And so I personally felt, the pull of these tools of social media in a probably different way than most. And, it's always been a challenge because like you, I think they're amazing and I don't want to be cut off completely from technology. It has a lot of wonderful sides. You can, you're living in a regional town, you can access to information all over the world. You can tap into trends, connect with people. All these things are wonderful and should be, celebrated. But then again, it's also the dark sides are you can really, lose yourself. You can go down rabbit holes. You can start opening Instagram and TikTok and then wonder where the next 30 minutes or hour has gone by. And this is something that I felt deeply in my life back in for the last years until I decided that it's time to actually build something that helps people, be present for their own lives and make sure that they can have the tools at their disposal to do that and make that happen. And so, yeah, it's a personal journey like you. I've experienced this, and I'm really trying to build the tools for everyone to make it easier for them to be able to take that control.
Yeah. And so you talk about attention and time. So you're saying very easily we could lose 30 minutes to an hour, but attention is really the real currency, right? Where we're putting our attention has
Sure.
huge impact on our lives. So why do you
Sure.
think protecting our focus is even more important than protecting our time?
Yeah. I think that you said it right. Attention is extremely important, right? It's
Mm,
what will guide your life in so many ways. And so protecting it matters a lot because you're using these tools that of course are free. We don't pay
yeah.
for TikTok or Instagram, for all of, for Gmail and any other of these tools. But the cost is that there are obviously companies that are, selling to advertisers, selling to third parties
Mm,
with the goal of changing our attitude. You wanted Birkin bad. That's an interesting example here, right? Where essentially you've got a system that's designed to make you want things and change,
mm,
what you care about. And so if you're not careful, you might lose yourself and all of a sudden, decide, what do I actually care about? What are my values? What are the things I actually want to accomplish in life? And so I think that's really the core of why we've seen so much, unfortunately, darkness come out of social media,
mm,
where we see depression. I mean, I don't know if you've ever felt good after going on Instagram, but most people, when they close the app, do not feel good, right? And that's certainly I
yeah.
don't. But you still do it. And why do you still do it? That's really interesting. And so you want to make sure that you can, as I really am very optimistic about mankind, about human beings. I think that we all have wonderful dreams and we can grow so much and build so many great things, you know, and everybody's different and everybody's got their own goals and, life objectives. And I think they're all worth it. And so it's very important in my mind to make sure that people can have these intentions. We talked about attention, but intention is a different
Mm,
one here. Have these intentions and then make sure that we place our attention in order to serve our intention, to make sure
mm,
we can make progress, achieve those goals, become who you want to be. And it could be many different things. If it's family that you care about, make sure that you can actually be present when you're around your family, spend time with them. If it's work, make sure you want to accomplish the goals you want in your life, in your professional life. And well-being, of course, like make sure that you can be the person that you'd like in terms of wellness, well-being, sleep at the right time, go to the gym, do the things that you actually
yeah.
want to do, rather than the things that the system is pushing you to want and pushing you to do. So I think that's why it's so important. And I think you're right. Time is one way to measure this, but attention is an even more important way to measure it, which is, where do you place your attention? What are you paying attention to? What do you value in
Mm.
your life?
Yeah, I think it's so true, Kenneth, because where we place our attention leads to the actions that we take, right? And it's so
Right.
interesting you say about making sure that we're doing things that are true to the essence of what we want to do, not that what we're being influenced to do. And it's funny because I like to think I'm pretty strong willed and I'm very clear on what my rich life is. And that's not financially rich, it's experientially. And yet, still, at one point, I was convinced I needed a Birkin bag, which is the most ridiculous thing that could happen. And it's a trivial example, but one that shows you the power of where your attention is placed. And I think it's a really powerful example, even though it's a trivial one. I'd love to know from your
No. Yeah.
perspective. So I've studied psychology and I know things like pokies use variable interval ratios to get people sort of addicted to poker machines, to get addicted to gambling. Does big tech use similar sort of psychological tools to get us addicted, or how do they understand our brains? What are they looking for to get us addicted to this? So maybe the listeners can be aware and
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I mean, what you're describing, so there's a lot of science like you're describing that goes into how to change people's behavior. And that's something that's been, research topic for dozens and dozens of years. And yes, the people who are building these tools are students of this science and actually apply this science to the product. In
Mm,
fact, there's a wonderful book that a colleague, near AR, had a chance to work with a little bit. has written called Hooked, which is really like an influential book in Silicon Valley, where he basically documented how the big products like Instagram, like Facebook and others were built originally. And it turns out, a lot of the core principles came from the small Stanford lab, which was led by a researcher called BJ Fogg, prominent researcher in behavior science change,
Mm,
all the things that you talk about that were used by the casino industry before to build, addictive loops. And so Kevin Systrom, founder of Instagram, Mark Zuckerberg, founder of Facebook, both studied with this particular professor and many others actually in Silicon Valley. It had a massive impact on how people think about this. And so, yes, they're using all the science to understand people, understand psychology, and understand how you change that behavior, and they apply it to the products that we use every day. And so that's why you get things like the infinite scroll, which
mm,
appeared in social apps now, right? Because it's really making sure that there is no end, there is no stop,
mm.
there's a constant supply. And that's something that we're particularly vulnerable to because in real life, we're not used to an endless supply of stuff. Usually when you go to a tree with fruits and once you've eaten all the fruit in the tree, there is no more fruits. You kind of
Yeah.
stop there. But with the infinite feed, it's an infinite source of stimulation. Autoplay on YouTube and all of these other platforms as well is a
Mm,
similar technique that is used for that. The notion of likes, for example,
yeah.
is playing on our social vulnerabilities, the fact that we always are looking for reassurance to make
Mm,
sure that we're validated, in society. That's super important. So all of these things, are really rooted in science. And this science is used in a way against us because you have to remember that, big tech doesn't care about our well-being. It doesn't
mm,
care about the well-being of children fundamentally because the business model is not about well-being. The business model is about, engagement and like we're describing, like changing people's attention. So even if they're wonderful people working in these companies, the companies themselves don't make money when you feel better. They make
yeah.
money only when you want something that you don't have that maybe you're going to pay an advertiser. And so it's really important to understand this. I think definitely there's a lot of science that goes into these products. And then, that combined with the interest of these companies, that creates the outcomes we see today where, social media is causing depression. We see this
Mm,
with more and more science, with AI, which is an interesting new development as well. We really have to look at what is the business model there as well. Is it
yeah.
is it also about changing behavior? So these are very interesting topics to talk about.
Yeah, they're big topics, Kenneth, aren't they? You mentioned AI, and I think that's a huge topic as well because, at what point does it become for the benefit of profit versus for the greater of humanity? I sort of want to know, I guess, is the bigger threat that AI is giving us 30 minutes back and we immediately lose it to scrolling? So is it that it's taking our tasks away, or is it that we're actually then taking the time that we win back and wasting it on something else that's not necessarily productive?
Yeah, that's a big question. I think you're right, but I want to say I love technologies in power to do so many things. I think it's
Mm,
wonderful. I use so many different AI tools. I'm trying them. I'm trying to learn, trying to figure out how it can help my job, my life. And there are so many wonderful things. Like give you an example,
yeah.
voice to text. Like I actually never was able to speak into my phone and get it and have it get it. And now all of a sudden with new tools, like I use this tool called Whisper, which is a great kind of voice to text tool. It just becomes so much easier. And so
Mm,
when you're walking, even when I'm in the office, I might just want to talk rather than type. That's super interesting, right? And maybe actually I spend less time on my screen typing because of that. But there are so many other great uses of AI, ChatGPT,
mm,
of course, and others. They're great. But to your point, there's I think two problems. One, like you're saying, if it saves you time, then what do you use the saved time to do, right? If it's just to go back on TikTok and feel worse, that might not be great. But if you use that time to be able to do something that you like or something that
yeah.
is good for you or something that is productive in some way and that you feel satisfied with, that's great. And so we really have to make sure that we can use that time in the right way. And I think we need tools to do that. And we can talk about it later. That's the first problem. Second problem, I think, is the fact that, ChatGPT just introduced ads last week.
Mm,
So the business model of some of these companies is going to look similar to the business model of the companies that we already know, like Meta and Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all these companies. And so that's also slightly a concern where we have to just make sure that we understand that, because if, ChatGPT makes money by selling ads, then it's going to make you want even more of a Birkin bag and others,
Yeah.
than before. And it might be even more powerful, right? Because you're going to feel that you're having a, honest conversation with this
Mm.
neutral, superhuman, super intelligence, when actually it's gonna look to change your behavior. And so I think that's something that we have to be mindful of. But again, I don't want people to be scared about using AI or
Yeah.
scared about using technology. I think as it's always going to be, yes, they're wonderful in so many ways, but let's find out how to use them right. Like, let's find out what tools we need, what education we need to be able to really take the good without the bad.
There's a saying, and I don't know if I'm going to say it correctly. It's not the poison, it's the dose. That, in terms of technology, right? Like the technology might not be, the thing is not the poison, it's about how we use it that becomes the poison. I think it's all
Yeah.
this stuff is so interesting we're talking about here, Kenneth. And so many of us know this, right? Like many of us know that it's doing us no good. We shouldn't waste our time scrolling, all of those sorts of things. But why don't we change it?
Yeah. I think it's super hard. I think it's just, first of all, most of us, and myself included, like, we got lots to do in our lives. It's not easy to manage all of that. And these tools are super powerful, designed by
Mm,
very smart people to make sure that, whenever we feel, and this is where the exploitation happens, is whenever we feel stressed, bored, for example, which happens throughout the day, that the easiest thing we can do in our lives is take our phone, take our computer, and scroll, basically.
yeah.
And so these companies are really good at building products that just fit these moments in our lives where we feel these particular emotions. And because it's so easy, and it's also, you know, it feels good temporarily,
Mm,
that's why it makes it so hard. And so I think that's the main thing. The other thing is, most of us didn't grow up learning about these things. And so
mm,
we've not been told how to manage it. I like to compare to eating. Every person in the world, kind of learns about healthy eating habits in one way or
mm,
another in the family context, like from the very, very early day, then school, all of these things. It's not the same everywhere in the world, but generally everybody has some understanding of, yeah, this is okay. This is not great. If you eat like 10 hamburgers in a sitting in 10 minutes, you're probably not going to feel amazing. Like, everybody has an understanding of that. But for technology, it's just so new that people don't have that. There's been no sort
mm.
of, basic education. And so I think that there's also this education that needs to happen. That's why, the role of schools, the role of parents is going to be super important to be able to, teach the next generation to make the difference between certain things. And so, yeah, I think the tools are missing. I think also the education is missing. But the good news
Mm,
is, we're seeing a lot more happen right now. And obviously,
yeah.
Opal is one of the initiatives, but there's just a lot more going on. There's a lot more going on for education. With new generations, there's a lot of people, writing amazing books. And so it's starting to happen. It just, all of this happens so quickly that education and tooling didn't necessarily catch up as fast as the scrolling apps. And so that's why it makes it so hard today, I think, for so many people who don't have the right tools in education to do it. And then again, because the life is complicated, it's always easier to just pull and scroll than it is to do something you don't really know how to do, which is like, manage those tools in a healthy way.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting what you say about education as well, Kenneth. In Australia, we've just passed legislation for people under 16 years old are not allowed to have social media accounts. So they've closed down any under 16 who has a social media account. Do you think things like that actually work, or do you think we need to invest more in educating rather than just pushing the problem down the road?
Yeah, I'm conflicted about this. Actually, we'll say something. I think social media bans are dangerous. But
Mm,
here's why. There's no debate that social media has serious harms for teenagers and for kids. There's plenty of studies. The big tech companies have hidden those studies. We know that
Mm.
too. So clearly there's something there. The problem is, what I've observed is when you ban something for kids, in particular for teenagers, what happens is you push children into secrecy. So
Yeah.
instead of not doing it at all, they might still do it, but they're going to do it without showing you, without showing the adult, without showing the parents, because now they understand that this is not a good thing. It's bad. And so they're going to find a way around it. And I think that
Mm.
this is what I'm worried about. I know that VPN apps, have kind of
Mm.
exploded with the social media ban. So kids are, using a VPN to kind of get around the
Yeah.
restrictions. I think that's one thing that's going. Um, and so but the problem is, like, why you don't want kids in secrecy is there's serious stuff that could be happening on their phones. And as a parent, you want to know that, right? Because obviously there are
Mm.
dangers, there are um, all the worst things that you keep hearing about, definitely exist. But so when that happens, you don't want that to be a secret conversation. You actually want that ideally to be an open conversation, to give
Yeah.
the kid a seat at the table and the tools to manage their own situation.
Mm.
And it needs to make sense for them. They need to understand, okay, here's why, you can't do that, but you can do this. And so I'm just worried about blanket bans
Mm.
because they push kids into secrecy and you don't want them to hide this. And so, we've got actually an interesting example where we actually have a lot of high school students that are using Opal
Mm.
around the world. It's about a third of our user base. And it's not
Wow.
people telling them to use it. They're using it on their own. And so they're really kind of choosing to say, okay, I want to learn this. I want this tool. And what we found is this past year, we had actually schools reach out to us because they saw that their students were using the app. And so the schools wanted to partner with us to say, okay, can we actually work together to create a
Mm.
smart phone policy for our school? And so now we have something called Opal for Schools, which is a product that we developed in partnership with schools. So we have several schools now, high schools in the United States that are partners of ours. And the way it works is they kids, get the app on their phone. When they walk into campus, the banned apps get blocked. So they can't go on TikTok
Wow.
and Instagram, but they can still access their phone and they can still, use it for texting their mom if they need, or getting access to maps and Uber, or being able to use educational apps that some schools want
Mm.
to use because they want to teach kids how to do these things. But the interesting thing is when they leave school, they still have the app. They don't have to use it at all. But what we're finding is, half of the students are still using the app after school, and they're setting up their sleep routine, and they're also figuring out, so how to get to bed early, which is a massive issue.
Mm.
Um, because what we've seen with other kinds of bans is you got this binge effect that takes place. If
Yeah.
you can't use your phone during the school hour, then the moment that you leave school, you might just binge on the stuff that you weren't allowed to do. So we're very encouraged by this approach to just make sure that we can give kids the right
Mm.
tools, have an open conversation, give them a seat at the table, give them some agency, so they really understand why and they understand how to make it work for them.
Yeah, I think you make such really important points there, Kenneth. Like anything with kids, if they're told they can't do it, what's the one thing they want to do? They always want to do the thing that they're told they're not allowed to. But I also think giving them credit enough to have a conversation with them, like you said, around this is the reason why it could be harmful for you. I love that you have an Opal Schools program. We need that in Australia. Like, I think how wonderful that the minute they walk in, those apps immediately close off. I think what a fantastic way to approach it, but it's not like their whole phone doesn't work while they're at school. So I think such important work, and I think work that needs to continue on. Do you have any tips for maybe any parents listening on how to start that conversation if they have, their kids on social media, maybe they're finding that they can see them scrolling into the night and they're overusing it? How to have that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, this is very hard, by the way. I have a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old, so they don't have phones yet. But so I don't have a personal experience with this, but I've seen many parents, there are Opal users and people around that have tried different things. So I can speak from that perspective. But I just want to say, first of all, like, If you're a parent with kids age, let's say 12 and up, and sometimes even earlier, it is a really big challenge today. And it's probably the most important parental challenge of today in all of our countries. I know it's the case in Australia. I know it's the case in Europe and in the US and many other places. We see it's literally the number one source of conflicts between parents and teenagers everywhere. I have a few thoughts. The first one is that the problem with direct open conflict is that you really create opposition, and that in a way, that's what the teenagers looking for is a real reason to fight, because it's how we grow, and that's part of, I think, what teenagers are, and how you grow. So it's important to, you know, have conversations, even if it's very difficult, but to have an open conversation, to avoid direct conflict. Like, I say you do this. No, I don't want to do it, because this,
Yeah.
of course, is rarely works. So second is conversation and giving a seat at the table. I was lucky enough to be asked to speak at a high school just last week with a bunch of 15 and 16-year-olds. And I wasn't their parent, so it's much easier because, of course, they
Yeah.
don't listen to their parents. But still, I thought what was very interesting is I asked them to say, like, what do you think parents should be doing about phones? And they all had different kinds of ideas. But it's very important to give them a voice, to give them that just opportunity to just say what they, to have a conversation, right? Like, what do you think? Okay, well, I think this, and then you can kind of have a conversation. So I think like that conversation is super important. The other thing I would say is, if I had to pick one battle, because you obviously like have to pick some battles, I would pick the sleep battle and drop everything else. Maybe there's many different small battles within like just phones and kids and teenagers, right? Like there's, are they on social media? Are they using games? Are they using their phone when I'm talking to them and things like that? But I think sleep is where I really focus all of my effort if I had to pick just one thing, and drop the others, and maybe do it step by step. Sleep, because sleep is, as you know, so important for the developments of the child, so important for their health, so important for their well-being. And it's also a little bit like, if you want to teach discipline, I know they do this at the army, for example, right? Like, I think the first thing you do is, teach someone to make their bed. It's
Yeah.
like this small thing that you can do every day, small routine that you can then build upon. And I think that the routine of, let's say, we're going to turn off our phone, put it away from the bedroom. I know it's a very difficult thing to do, but no phones in bed at a specific time, that can go a long way, because then, the kid can sleep better. Um,
Yeah. They're
and
more
and
regulated because they're
it just starts this
sleeping.
positive. Yeah, and they can, maybe they can feel the benefits themselves. Also, they can be
Yeah.
pushed a little bit, but they can feel the benefit, and then have a conversation. Hey, like, maybe do you feel like more rested? Do you feel a bit better? And then you can kind of like build upon that. But I want to say, very difficult topic. I think every child is different, every parent is different, and
Mm.
of course, like I was saying, every parent is dealing with so much in their own lives. It's a difficult job that you have with this. Last thing is, I think, of course, kids model behavior with their parents, and that's also something we try to stand
Yeah.
behind with Opal, which is that it also kind of starts with you. And so if you want
Yeah.
your kid to put their phone away at night, for example, well, this is something that you have to do yourself and show and model. I think even if they're at the point of resistance, and like, you're uncool mom and dad, I don't want to listen to you, but still, I think if you do that, I think you can have a lot more, credibility to have this kind of conversation with the kids. So yeah, just thought starters. And I don't have a magical solution there. I think it's a difficult topic.
I think you raised so many good points there, and I'm so pleased that you said start with sleep, because I don't think that's just an issue for teenagers. I think it's an issue for adults as well. When I run my workshops, really, people say that they can't stop scrolling at nighttime. And I often say, plug your phone out of the bedroom. And if you are worried about someone contacting you in the night, put it in your bathroom near your bedroom, or put it at the floor so you can't reach it. So you
Yeah.
have to actually physically get out of bed
Yeah.
to get your phone. I mean, we do have alarm clocks, so everyone's like, it's my alarm. And I just think you can get a $20 alarm clock. That's not an excuse. But sleep is the foundation of everything. And I think that's so important. But you raise a really good point around role modeling that behavior. But I honestly think it's just as difficult for adults to put their phone down as it is for the kids, right? And I think I know in the past I have felt ashamed of the fact, like, I'm pretty good at habits, Kenneth. Like I know how to hold a habit, I know how to be disciplined, and yet still I need an app like Opal to help me with my screen time. So, what do you say to people who feel still ashamed about the fact that they need something like Opal to help them monitor their screen time?
I think you bring an excellent point. There's a lot of shame.
Mm,
Don't be ashamed. There's two categories of people in the world, I think today. One category that has the problem but doesn't talk about it,
yeah.
hides it maybe, and one category that also has the problem and is kind of brave enough to talk about it, right? It's not like I think there's anyone in the world, including the smartest people. I think it's important to say that, right? All the big names you can think about of like, CEOs of tech companies that are said to be super smart, they have these problems. And they know it very
Mm,
well because they don't give phones to their kids.
yes.
And so it touches everyone, right? It doesn't matter whether you're like, I don't know, top athletes, someone who is supposed to be, the top of discipline or just anyone. Everybody has this problem. And I think that's super important to say because there is a lot of
Mm,
shame. And again, these tools are so powerful. They're probably the most powerful tools we've ever built. That willpower alone is not the answer. For most people, it cannot
mm,
simply work. And so you tools, you need education. I'm like you. I use Opal. I definitely do. If I want to, be able to use social media, sometimes I need to have Opal. So
yeah.
so I use it because it just makes me more aware of how much time I'm spending, and it helps me put in place barriers. And so I do this
Yes.
for the evening time. I've got, like you, I want to make sure that I'm winding down, that I don't sit on my phone in the evening. And I use it also to just during the day, make sure I don't interrupt my work so much
Yes.
with the latest news, which I feel like social media is also part of our job. We kind of
Yep.
have to talk to people, publish content, but we can do this in a more structured way, right? We don't necessarily do this
Mm,
all day, every 10 minutes. We could probably say, okay, I'm just going to do this, for 1 or 2 hours a day at these specific hours. And all of a sudden bring more structure to our days. And that's the kind of things that the Opal app is really good at doing, putting
yep.
in place the structure, helping you kind of follow through there.
Yeah.
And yeah, no shade. You get,
Thank you for saying that because
yeah,
I like to think I have pretty strong willpower and yet still I find it difficult. And so Opal's been a game changer for me, not just even for evenings, but sometimes if I'm feeling a level of discomfort within my work, I might be doing a hard task, writing something or really deep in writing content or reading a research paper. Sometimes to allay the discomfort, I would pick up my phone to scroll. And so having it locked makes
yeah.
it a lot easier. But why does picking up our phone in those circumstances feel like a break or feel like it's helping us, but then afterwards we don't feel great? We were talking about earlier how, but when you put the app down, when you stop scrolling, we actually feel worse. Have you got any insight into that?
Yeah. Yes, that's been really researched quite a bit, in particular, generally apps like Instagram, to name it. When you measure how people feel before they use it and after they use it, it's worse. And it's
Mm,
pretty clear with differences on the types of people. And so unfortunately has come out, and this is something that actually was part of the research that Instagram, that Meta did themselves internally, and then it was leaked. But
mm,
when it comes to young women, the impact is worse. So young women with Instagram do feel even worse when they're using the app. And the main thing here is that social media companies and the social media apps, the way it works is you're basically looking at other people's lives, and you're looking at this kind of deformed, mirror, that is showing you the best version of other people's lives, right?
mm,
Not the real version, but the best version, of course. And we all know this. We all play this game when we
yes.
participate in social media. But the thing is that when you look at all these amazing pictures or videos, of a slightly improved life, then you walk away feeling, okay, what about me? I just sat
Mm.
here and did nothing. Um, and so that's the contrast that makes you feel worse. And, of course, there's the body image issue, which is a massive one with a lot
Mm.
of the content that you see on social media, which is fake. There's been filters for a long time, but now, of course, with AI, most of the
Yeah.
content actually that's coming out is fake. So it's really unrealistic expectations as well. And so that's part of the dangers of it that really we need to be aware of. What I think is interesting though is like once people are aware of that, they become less affected by it because you can
Mm.
kind of take a bit of distance and say, wait, actually, like this is not real. I understand it. And so I think that, yeah, awareness education plays a big role here. But of course, for a 12, 13-year-old that
Mm.
doesn't have that education, or for someone that's starting to use the app, there's no one's telling them this. Like no
Yeah.
one's saying, hey, like this is what you're
It's
about
not
to
real.
see, just so you know, a lot of it is not real.
Mm.
It's when you start to watch a movie, right? When you start to watch a movie, you know that you're not going to see something real, right? So when it's when there's a bomb that explodes and blows up
Yeah.
half of Manhattan, when there's we know that that's not real. That's a story, right? That's a
Mm.
movie. But when we open up social media, we actually kind of expect it to be real, and so that's where it's more dangerous.
It's where there's that discourse because you expect it to be real, but it's not. But often people can't discern that. I actually heard something the other day saying 1 out of every 4 pieces of content on social media is now AI generated, not real. It's probably more than that, but I heard a stat saying 1 out of 4. I'd love to know where you think this is going to
Yeah.
go, Kenneth, because you just made me think a little bit. Even if when I'm on social media for my business. And when I look now on social media, I mean, I'm a millennial. So I grew up without technology and then it sort of came in. Like MySpace was my first foray into this sort of social media platforms. But I look at it now and I almost feel repelled by it. Like, why am I looking at this? I don't care about a lot of this stuff. Do you think there might be a bit of a rebellion against it? Or do you think that no, it's too ingrained and it's going to continue?
So, like you, I feel like it's getting to the point where it's less fun for a lot of
Mm.
people to participate in this social media uh, game. And like you were saying, also now with AI, a lot of the content we're going to see, and I didn't know that particular stat, but for sure, more and more content we're going to see is going to be
Mm.
fake. So I think it's definitely going to evolve, and maybe we're going to use something else. I mean, something that's very clear is that a lot of, you know, now people are using ChatGPT and using,
Mm.
other apps that are, AI apps in a kind of form of entertainment, a different way. Not just
Yeah.
let's sit back and watch a video. More let's chat. But I think that that's kind of replacing some of it,
Mm.
and it's going to become a different form of entertainment that might be healthier in some ways because you can get better things, but like we were saying, we still have to figure out, you know make sure that what the tool we're using, like how it's actually influencing us. And so I think social media is evolving. It's going to change quite a bit. I don't know exactly how, but I feel like you that people are tired of
Yeah.
the social media that's existed in the last few years. There's probably too much content. There
Mm.
is a lot of fake content. And so I think it's going to evolve. One of the positive things that can happen is that we go back to maybe the early days of what
Yeah.
social media was, where it was mostly people you knew and you followed that you actually cared about.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a return to something where it's real, it's more real than it's been. Maybe it's going to be a different social media platform that we don't yet
Mm.
know about that will do that. I think
Yeah.
that's possible also. But also I'm seeing a lot more a return to things that are real life. So I know a lot of kids are picking up like chess, for example, and
Yeah.
meeting up in person, which wasn't cool at all like 10, 20 years ago. So there's also that's coming into play. I think people are craving for that also, more in-person hobbies and interaction.
Yes. Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot too. People really investing in hobbies and being in person with people. I would love to see social media go back to being a true social network of people that you know. So it's not that comparison, but rather you're sharing things about your life. So you're really, connecting with the people you know. I agree with you. I think that people are tired. How do you feel like social media is contributing to burnout? There was a study done in Australia recently, and 66% of workers reported that they felt burnt out. And that's a large number. What role do you think sort
Yeah.
of these apps and being connected all the time plays in that?
Yeah. So I think when you look at the brain of a human, basically we haven't changed in thousands of years biologically, right? We're kind of the same brain. But the difference is today we consume an immensely more information than we ever have before, right? Just the number of images, the number of
Mm,
videos, the number of text communications, all of these things keeps going up. And what happens is our brain that hasn't changed is overwhelmed. And so there definitely something that's called information overload that happens for a lot of people. And what that does is that, when you consume so much information, you get into this state of of overload where you can't process information in the same way. One thing that happens, I think, and I'm pretty convinced about this, is that you're actually more gullible when you're in that state
yeah.
because it's just hard for you to see what's real and what's not. Um, and so that happens. And I think when that happens over time and for a long time, then that's one of the causes that makes you more vulnerable to something like burnouts, where
Yeah.
you are in this state for a long time and you kind of go about your day and go about your work.
Mm,
And then all of the other things we talked about, maybe you sleep less, maybe you don't pick up and maintain this kind of healthy routine, all of these things. And then, of course, on top of that, maybe your job is extremely stressful, maybe your boss is
yeah.
horrible. All of these things, kind of add up to the point of you entering this state of burnout. And certainly, but I think that the way this connects is using all these, social media tools, news creates this information overload state. And what we need a moment to recharge. We need a moment to
Mm,
disconnect every day or every week just to not consume information for a bit. And
yeah.
that's just the resting time that our brain needs actually to reset and to be able to then go back into, receive more information. And I think for a lot of people that doesn't exist. That's just like
Mm,
constantly always on. You got your phone in your pocket, you're constantly picking it up every 5 minutes. And then what happens? And then you maybe go to bed, maybe with your phone right next to you. Maybe it beeps
yeah.
during the night and you get more information there. And it's just this constant loop of getting more and more information. And when you never go back to rest and never actually like truly get to the point of, I'm not consuming any information, I'm
Mm.
going to be bored, you don't reset. And so you're more vulnerable to things like burnout.
Yeah,
That's the way I see it. But
absolutely.
I'm curious to see like how you see it, because I know you have a lot of expertise in that topic also.
Yeah, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. I think, I do think when we have too much information, we're less discerning about being able to make decisions, and discernment and judgment so important in our lives. One of the biggest things I say is you should have moments of stillness and silence every single day, because it's where your creativity comes from. It's how we recuperate. We are constantly getting information. And so I think go for a walk without a podcast, go for a drive without the radio on, all of those sorts of things I think
Yeah.
are so important to have moments of silence and rest. We don't know how to be bored anymore. I say when you're waiting in line, I don't know if people still go to the post office, but post office, or when you're waiting in line, don't pick up your phone, just observe what's going on around you. So, yeah, absolutely. I think it's contributing to overload, overwhelm, and burnout. One last question for you, Kenneth. If we fast forward five
Yeah.
years, what role do you hope tools like Opal are going to play in how we care for our mental well-being? Because I think we've seen collectively mental health decline, and tools like Opal, I think, are phenomenal. I thank you for investing in it and creating something like this, because not only has it helped me, it's helped the hundreds and thousands of people that I've run workshops with. So where do you hope Opal will be in helping with mental health 5, 10 years down the track?
Yeah. I, and I'm really, really excited to have talked to you today. I think, in the next few years, what I want to make sure is that Opal can be a partner to your well-being, to, your intelligence, as we see these new tools come online, and AI is massively exciting. We talked about it a little bit. We need a partner that we can trust, that is on our side. And that's the way I see Opal evolving, right? From a tool to a partner. And what that means is Opal is going to be, maybe more proactive to understand you and understand what is it that you care about? What kind of job do you do? How is your personal life, your professional life? Understand, how's your calendar set up? And then be able to intervene just at the right time with the right message to be able to bring you back on track, and make sure you don't have to be afraid to use these wonderful tools that are going to come about, and make sure that you can have this partner you can trust on your phone, on your computer, on all of your devices. And so that's where we want to take it. And we also want to make sure that we can, be accessible and available for as many people as possible. We have a wonderful, thriving community, and thank you for being a part of it, of people using Opal all over the world. Australia is a wonderful place for Opal today as well. And we just want to be able to also make sure that it gets in the hands of even more people, because we really believe it's a massively important thing to make sure that humankind can move, in the right direction. We really care about what people can do with their lives, making sure they feel better, making sure they can thrive, and making sure that they can make progress every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're doing such important work, and I think you're encouraging connection and focus and helping people's brains as well. So, is there anything I haven't asked you today that you wish I had asked you that you want to share with the audience?
The last thing I want to say is, don't be ashamed. If you need to use a tool, if you need to learn this, we're all in this together. I feel it personally, even though I'm in this industry and I've built this company for the last 6 years. So don't be ashamed. Just take the first step, and you'll go in the right direction if you just keep going step by step. And I'm super excited to see you and talk about these topics, because I think we need more awareness, and we need to give people those tools and this encouragement to start. So thank you very much for the conversation today. And I look forward to talking soon.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kenneth.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining me on Work and Wellness. If today's episode resonated with you, remember, someone in your network might need to hear this too. Share it with a colleague or friend who could use these insights. I'd love to keep the conversation going, so find us on Instagram at Mind Your Grit, where we share daily tips and continue these discussions. And if you found value in today's episode, please take time to rate and review the show. It makes such a huge difference and helps other people discover conversations they might really need. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. Each week, we're building a community of people who believe that success and well-being go hand in hand. You can find the notes, resources, and links from today's episode at mindyourgrit.com. This is Work and Wellness with Ange Davis. Your work matters, your wellness matters, and this is where it all comes together. See you next week.